Shall we go over that doc?
Yeah, please do. Yeah. It's
Okay. I thought that was a very coherent doc overall, despite your disclaimer that it was just notes. Um, I would like to point out several shortcomings that I can observe from reading it,
excellent.
keeping in mind that it's very easy to spot shortcomings once something's there,
I know.
as opposed
I need to
to
be. I need to point it out because it's quite a thick topic,
okay.
actually.
The first missing point is that the centralized intelligence, you describe the process of intelligence gathering several times throughout the text.
Mm-hmm.
You do not at any point highlight the feedback loop from the centralized intelligence analysts back to the gatherers.
Oh, that's an interesting point. Yes, that's true. I didn't highlight that. I
That's an
wonder how.
important part. That's the closure. That's the closure of the OODA loop,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
And the centralized. There's an. I think you're touching on an important concept, which is the bottleneck that occurs with central.
Yeah.
The funneling effect, or the fact that it needs to be vetted sources, and even those vetted sources are treated as highly suspicious.
Yeah.
But you don't talk about the feedback loop because that's a necessary thing. Like, okay, I got this information, but we've got a theory. Can you go find out this thing?
Yes. Yes. Very true. Very true.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. The second thing that's missing is the notion of this paper is written as though both sides have either an equal amount of a desire for secrecy of reality, or but it doesn't talk about the type of conflict where one side is desperately trying to publish what's happening versus, like a war where both sides want to keep it a secret is probably not one that we would ever want to be involved in. Because what are they fighting for?
Yes, that's true. That second part is true. The first part is even a regime that wants to put out disinformation, and many do, although some do it better than others, still want a clear view to make their own judgment calls. So there's what they say and what they actually
Yeah,
do.
no, the difference I'm trying to get at is that right now in the Ukraine, desperately people want to publish every single incident that
Right.
the Russians are perpetrating against them, right?
Yeah.
The Russians, on the other hand, don't want that, right? Because I don't know how to describe it, but some wars are an invasion. Like there's different classes of wars. Like someone breaking into your home, breaching your perimeter defenses, you need to broadcast that because you want to plead to the world to come and help you. And you're like, look at what they're doing to me.
Right, because
And so you
you're
want,
the aggrieved one. Someone breaking into
yeah,
your home.
you want reality to go
Yeah.
out and up, right? Now we've seen cases where, 9/11, probably the most televised attack in the history of the world. That was the United States that used that to publish, hey, we are aggrieved. And then they went and did a bunch of stuff. Now, what am I getting at is that the wars I'm aware of is usually one side that is 10 to 100 times more interested in publishing the truth than the other side.
Yes.
Right? Warfabric is on the side of that person.
Yeah.
That party. Right? Now, the So that's that asymmetry of how you treat that view of reality is missing from this document. An aggressor like Russia treats reality as a utility, as a resource.
Mm-hmm.
They need it, they want it, but they need it for its utility.
Mm-hmm.
The people of Ukraine need it for the sake of their lives. Like they need it like the air they breathe.
There's an interesting analogy here. I think I mentioned this before a couple of years ago when we were talking about T-83 and so on. You were talking about the inside war and the internal war and the external war. And there's an analogy here as well. So the internal war in this case would be organizing resources inside of the battlefield in order to get the outcomes that you desire. The external war in this case is the likes of winning the support of as many nations as possible, as many sanctions as possible. Those countries putting in sanctions take hits themselves. So there's an external war to this point. So just to be a bit more nuanced on what you're saying, on one side, if you're the aggressor, you're not going to win that external war unless every other country are dicks, right? Every other country is going to be looking at it and saying, you've invaded this other country, and yeah, you're a bit of a dick for doing that. So they're never going to win over the opinion. The best they can do is dilute and confuse. So their internal war between the two parties is exactly the same. They both are looking for the clearest view of reality because that's what they make the decisions on. The external war, the aggrieved party wants to make the public view of what's going on as close to reality as they can because that wins them the support. Whereas the aggressor wants to make it as confused and as fake and as diluted as they possibly can. And we're already seeing that. I don't know if you caught the news this morning, but there's a number of videos going around claiming that the war in Ukraine is actually fake. And you want to bet those came from Russia. And they're getting millions of views. They're getting traction. So that confusion and dilution is the goal of the external war of the aggressor, whereas the one who is aggrieved needs to win the external war by having clarity, the clearest view of reality being the one that's accepted as what's actually real by the rest of the world. Both internally, however, have exactly the same goal, is because, as I was saying in the doc, reality doesn't care on the battlefield. In the internal war, reality doesn't care if you believe in it or not. It just is.
Yeah. Okay, so that's those two differences. There's a third omission, it would seem, in that you're not really talking about the vastness of the pool of, like, if you can manage to make every single citizen be a data point and start using this infrastructure for all their other needs as well, like publicizing I need food, publicizing my water's out, I need electricity, publicizing all these different things, because civilians in need don't need secrecy.
That's a good point. This was actually the point I was hoping to go through in some detail, because this is the point I've struggled with most. So, coming from a military doctrine background, the last thing you're
still writing this as one organized force versus another organized force, right. And I'm trying to say that the true asymmetry is in the fact that there's this vast pool of non-combatants, and we want to make a system that lets you flip rapidly between non-combatant and combatant, in and out, as opposed to you're either one or the other, which is exactly what we're trying to do for companies. We want you to flick from not part of this company to part of this company and back. Another omission here is no talk about incentives or incentivizing the infrastructure or incentivizing the edge networks. Right?
Yes.
You haven't mentioned incentives at all, but that's a big part of the...
That's another part I need to talk to. So sorry, go through the
And
list, and we'll come back to
but
those two. Those two are important. Yeah.
the incentive part also relates to the external war that you talk about, because if you can attach and connect external uh, viewers to take part in the internal war through incentives,
I think the incentives
that's a
on the request, it's the NFTs drawing in funds as opposed to incentivizing someone on the ground to pick up a Kalashnikov. The assumption I've got is if in the internet war, you're either going to be fighting or you're not. Your personal circumstances, whether you've got children or you're a young lad and you're up for it, makes a huge difference. It's not going. It's not a personal incentive other than someone's invaded my country. I want to kick them out. But there is a separate, because incentives are a way of concentrating capital and resources
well, it's
in the
more
best
than
way.
that. It's much more than that. It's much more than that. It's a way of giving people meaning for what they do. Remember how I keep bitching about the so much money and time that I've spent, and I don't even have a T-shirt, right? It would. It's
The world's most
nice
expensive
to
T-shirt. Yeah.
recognize. It's nice to recognize contribution, if only with an NFT, and it's a powerful thing.
Yes, which exactly is what medals do. That's
Yeah, but we want to
precisely
give
that.
you medals for like just being there. Okay, like we can make as many medals as we require to record reality. These NFTs we talk about are actually the thingification of events. Humans don't deal with events well in terms of mapping them to things. Humans seek to own things, possess things, they hunger for things. They don't really hunger for events so much as the things that took part in the event. It's a call it a fallacy, I don't fucking know. But the point is, if you can start minting irrefutable participation and goal achievements, you can start to add to the cohesion of the group and allow people to assume a rank instantly based on you just look at the other guy's digital wallet and you're like, ooh, this guy, I should listen to this
Now
guy. And
that is an important point because that is actually
yeah,
that's a force of leverage. The idea of when there's largely chaos, who do you listen to?
it's rank.
Yeah,
It's decentralized rank is like how many of these tokens from a trusted issuance do you hold? And I'll immediately know I should listen. I should shut up and listen to what you're doing.
right. Yes, I've not addressed that largely because you know, so I've now got two docs. I'm planning on merging them back in. I put the Google Doc in there because still forming the ideas around the real crucial point, which is the bit I'm trying to get my head around, which is on the battlefield. Why on earth would you want the enemy to have complete access to all your intel? And
Well, I need to refine that for you with several points. The complete access is not where there's a civilian layer. There's a military layer, and then there's the cells or the militia layer. And like you wouldn't want to broadcast where each of you are, and you're like, "Hey, I'm a militia member," right? So there are still private amounts, but the thing is that you have the option to, once the information has run its course, open it up to make it part of the civil layer, the broadcast layer. A good thought experiment to think about is these Starlink satellites are in an incredibly low orbit, so low that taking photographs and videos at high resolution in real time doesn't seem too far out of their reach. I mean, why they haven't put some cameras on them, I don't know. I would be surprised if they didn't. And so if you imagine that Starlink makes real-time Google Earth available to everyone, that's the kind of world that we need this tool to operate in. There are multiple agencies seeking to highlight and broadcast accurate models of reality for us. We're trying to layer on top of it.
Yeah, we've got conversions in this one. So yesterday I was toying through this one because it does feel very unnatural from a guy, coming from the military background. It feels hugely unnatural.
But how unnatural did it feel when we talked about a transparent company, right? It took us months, possibly years, to get comfortable with that idea as superior.
Yeah, exactly.
And in particular, it seems to work best if you start that way.
Yes.
If you want to go from secret military to not, that's not so great.
Yeah. So what I was thinking yesterday is something very similar to what you're saying about the layers. So there's in the UK and in the US, there's a thing called the Daily Intelligence Briefing, and it's collated by a lot of very smart people, pulling sources from everywhere, including covert sources and overt and open source and so on. Now that is a huge resource which is kept secret. The public layer seems to be the collation of all that information for anyone to have a look at. And it's not just...
But it's not so much the collation, it's the raw data. And the idea is that by making it open, you can start to have automated processing tools be built that can do the collation in an automated sense. Right. And you also open up the pool to more people to help you, because that's one of the benefits we thought of for an open company is like, well, you let people contribute if you're open. Like how would any of us contribute to the Ukraine military? We wouldn't. Even if we paid some money in, would we know where the money went? No. Why would I stay interested when this war drags on for 5 years or more? Am I going to still be putting my money in or what? Right. But if I basically have a game that I go to Steam and I download, and it's called Warfabric Ukrainian Edition, and every day I can game out the scenarios that the resistance fighters are currently contemplating based on the latest model of reality. And that sometimes, just sometimes, my gameplay turns out to find a solution to a relatively thorny problem, to the point where people start using my gameplay as real-time, like someone to follow and enact without me even knowing it. I only find out afterwards that I had been in genuine control of some actual troops on the ground. Mm-hmm. Like, my participation becomes innate, like deep participation.
Right.
The money that I go down, I work at my job, and then maybe put fucking half of it into funding troops on the ground that I can then gain control, or at least achieve my objectives within that war. I'm gonna stick around for longer.
Yeah. But do you agree we're talking about the same thing? When I'm talking about that top layer, really what we're talking about is a repository. You're right, it's not collation. Repository of somewhere, any piece of information that could be of use is put. So at the moment,
like the hash-based data of Interblog is perfectly suited to that, because anybody anywhere can fire up a data source. You don't need to register to be able to publish. You just straight up publish, and it's up to the aggregators to pull it in.
Yeah, but there's a really interesting group in the UK that's been deployed various places, including Syria. And what they do is they take photographs, generally speaking, sometimes video, they geolocate them. And they geolocate them in such a way that the evidence can then be presented to, say, The Hague. That group, for example, would make, I think, huge use of a layer of resources that have been put in throughout a battlefield. Journalists, likewise, would make huge use of it. So the kind of the military side is one aspect of it, but this top layer really is similar
It's
to
a
what's
shared view of reality
right,
where everyone's interested in it being as high fidelity and accurate as possible. The
right,
two sides in these battles that I'm starting to see seem to be those that are interested in genuine reality as deep as they can get it and as quick as they can get it,
yeah.
and those that actually want to tamper or proxy reality
And
for
pretending
something
Steven
else.
Seagal was
And
working
and
in his own.
and the trouble is that right now the guys that want to tamper are using similar doctrine to the guys that want to faithfully broadcast. And so this tool is one that can greatly overpower the
Absolutely.
ability of the reality modifiers or corrupters, right?
Yeah,
Because it's just simply energy efficient
yeah,
to pass through transparently
yeah,
than it is to do it the closed way.
yeah.
And
Precisely.
that is a vast asymmetry tilted in the favor of those that seek genuine reality.
Right, right. Yes, that's exactly. I've been seeing this. This tool is disinterested about its actual use. All it is well, it's a repository where we can get information from the battlefield put up,
The
available for anyone
rally,
to do
the
anything with it.
rallying point, the battle lines seem to be those that want reality and those that want to distort reality.
Yes,
That seems to be the battle that we're lining up to fight here. And this tool is a reality tool.
yes, yes. I like the decentralized intelligence agency thing you sent over.
That
That's
was hilarious. But when you started, the fact that you said the centralized intelligence gathering, I was like, they put that in their name.
yeah.
They put that central doctrine in everything they did. And it's like we're saying that whole model is flawed.
Yeah. And so
You know, like you basically you're trying to use the KGB's model for good.
right.
It's you need a
Well,
new model.
yeah, yeah. Or the Stasi was, yeah, had huge records, all of it secret, um, for their own purposes. But if you made that available to anyone, I think you'd find uses well beyond what we're talking about. Simply with Warfabric.
Right. And the point is, if you have the support of your people, you can do a whole lot more, right? So long as you're aligned with them.
Yeah, yeah. The only drawback, and I think we really need to get into the use of reputation here. The only drawback is an open group of information like that is wide open to Byzantine fake news. Steven Seagal apparently is working for the Russian special forces right now, even though he's not. I was seeing that one that's got a few
It's
million
not. No,
views.
it's really not actually. Like this kind of system is less susceptible to that because the Byzantine general fault occurs when every general's trying to stay secret from everyone else. But if the entire company of soldiers heard the general's command,
Mm-hmm.
like it's a lot easier to spot the Byzantineness the more people see it, the more people can see the message.
Well, the one thing,
Byzantine becomes a more acute problem when you have closed doors.
well, there's an interesting aspect here because hold on, make sure I'm still recording that. I could just think of just switched off. I like voice recordings because you can listen to them on the go. Apologies. Oh, let's do that. There's a thing here about let's say if we take it away from the war zone and put it into a similar kind of conflict, which is an election campaign. And for sake of argument, let's talk about 2016 election campaign where you had disinformation from both sides coming out. So the Clinton campaign was heavily on trying to hide emails, not release emails. So that was definitely something dodgy. You had the whole QAnon thing with jumping on that and so on. But the characteristic of fake news is there's just not that much of it because it's got to be hand cranked. If you were to look at Ukraine, for example, right now, the number of photographs of damaged buildings and people walking around wounded lines of refugees and so on, sheer number of that
Yeah,
outweighs anything you could do
yeah,
in terms of fake news.
yeah. Right. It's just. I mean, look, you could auto generate a lot of that, but you can start to make tools that can automatically piece together things. Like if you've got camera shots from multiple angles, it's, you can automatically verify things. So,
Right.
I mean, I don't know what our point, what was the point you were
The point,
making with that? Sorry.
the point, the core point I was making is that I think we agree on that first layer, and this is the thing I was struggling with yesterday because coming from like the top secret side, it sounded like that's fucking nuts. The top layer is an aggregation of all information from any channel, any source,
Yeah,
and available to all.
anything. It's basically anything that anyone wants to share,
Yeah,
right? And it can be anonymized, it can be reputation based, it can be all manner of things, but it's basically this huge data set that's just saying, look, we just need help, we need reality.
yeah,
Here's our contribution, please someone help us, right? And then it opens up the world to be able to actually do something about it.
yeah. Now there's a second layer.
Now the
So,
militia running an op is going to have a closed network on top of that
yeah,
that's going to be feeding from the real-time updates of that layer, but they will definitely have some highly, highly secretive comms about their activities and what they're doing at the time. They may choose to either open up all of it or open up differential privacy scraped pieces of it, which can serve as instruction manuals, training manuals to other people who want to work like them.
right,
Right.
yes,
We can also start to add in tools that do things like allow combatants to hide within the public layer by doing statistical analysis on their behavior and saying, look, you actually need to move in this way today because statistically you might get found out as being blah, 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 blah. So there's a whole range of ways to hide in plain sight and also hide properly as well
right.
that become available. The more people are contributing genuine reality, the more you can use that as a tool.
That's the key point because all these use cases they all refer back to this idea of this decentralized intelligence database of everything. And there's a second layer. I don't know whether it's the same layer or whether we want to keep them separate. Probably want to be the same layer. But the addition of analyses by anyone.
That's all the same layer. It's
Yeah.
all the same layer.
Yeah. So
You can inside Warfabric, you can participate in as many closed groups as you like. You can all reference the same base layer. I mean, the map of the terrain of Ukraine's probably at least, you don't need your own private version of that. I mean,
right, but
it's
even down at the moment, it's dispersed. So even down to these fake videos that are going around saying the Ukraine conflict is not actually happening.
Right.
BBC
But
did
part of
did a fact
Warfabric,
check.
a big part of it is provenance.
Yeah.
If you live in Ukraine and you just got bombed, you are going to be incensed, and you're also going to want to prove the provenance of your video 100%.
Right.
A fake news item is not going to have that same voracious provenance behind it. And Warfabric gives you the tool to be able to, turn on your home CCTV surveillance. It runs without any incident for, say, 3 years, and then one day it captures a bomb landing in the house across the street from you, right? That has provenance. You're like, this stream with this signature has been broadcasting for fucking years, and then this thing landed in it. Of course it's not fake.
Right.
Like, what the fuck?
Right. Precisely.
There's another type of aspect, though, that I want to talk about that isn't mentioned and isn't really... we wanted to use it as a tool to provide pressure to pay, but I'll start with an example of how this weapon could be used. There's someone in Ukraine takes a photograph of a Russian soldier. Let's just assume that he's sticking to the rules and he's fighting the Hague Convention, blah. He's not really doing anything bad, but we catch his face in high res. We put it on Warfabric. Someone else says, oh, I know that guy. They then connect back to his wife. Someone takes a photo in Russia of his wife today walking down the street. Someone takes a photo of his kid in school, a photo of his kid's kid's mother, so on and so forth.
Right.
And they start logging this soldier's activities every day. Hey, this guy participated in the invasion of Kharkiv. This guy drove this tank down the middle of the street. And you say to him, look, first of all, there's the obvious one where people can put bounties up for, like, would someone like to cause harm to his family at home? Here's $1,000. Right? It's all gone, but fuck that guy.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And that's the scariest thing, right? If I'm a soldier and I think I'm kind of immune, and suddenly someone takes a photo of my kid going to school with, like, some, like, you're like, ooh.
And remember, that can bite both ways. Remember, that can bite both ways, right? So just as equally, Ukrainian militiaman, exactly the same scenario, has family here in the UK, say. Can work both ways.
But the chances of a decentralized cause can have agents in more places than a centralized cause, because that vetting goes two ways. You need to be vetted to be part of the Russian cause, but everyone else can kind of figure out that you're part of the Russian cause. The number of double agents is very small, right? Whereas a cause, like a massive injustice, you can have someone rise up to answer the plea. It can be anyone. They don't need to be vetted. They can be already in Russia, and suddenly they're like, my second cousin just got killed in Kharkiv. And then they trawl through the records and they're like, oh, that fucking guy lives down the road. And all they got to do is go take a photo outside that school, and suddenly they've really messed with a particular Russian soldier's head, because he's like, this wasn't really what I signed up for, sort of thing. My point is, okay, that's like, call that tier 1 effect. Tier 2 is like, look, our model of reality persists. In 100 years, your kids, grandkids, kids are going to be showing the videos of what you did to these people. Now, will the world have moved on? Probably fucking not, actually. Will people be looking for a reason to disenfranchise your future generations when resources are scarce? Why not take from the families of war criminals? I mean, the point is that this shit lasts.
I see what you're saying. So, for example, if we were to look at the Nuremberg war trials, if this resource had been available, those trials had been far more far-reaching. They were basically finding bad guys who broke the law and deserved to be punished. And it took a long time to filter through the papers and to get witnesses and so on. Yeah. However, you're building up in real time.
Long time. But we're taking that process and microizing and democratizing it. And we're saying judgment has been passed on you while you're still on the battlefield. Right? The chunk size that Nuremberg can process is large. They can't deal with, you came and you smacked this guy in the head. That wasn't really fair play. Yeah. They deal with you committed mass genocide because they can't deal with that many. Yeah. Right? But this type of system can call to judgment any level of behavior, so long as it's the only sort of barrier is, did you catch it on digital footage?
Yeah,
with provenance,
and that's the key thing, because it can cut both ways. But the argument would be, on balance, because you've got an entire population versus a small number who are putting information up here, that necessarily leans towards the good guys, the guys who are into openness. But
the guys that are into openness win that game.
But it could easily use.
It does cut both ways. It does cut both ways. But the point is, like, if someone's already invaded your homeland, like, what else are they going to threaten?
Yeah. Yes. There's that. But also, on both sides, it does. If you think about the squaddy on the streets, it does actually have a tendency to push towards better behavior.
Well, you actually want the Ukrainian militia to stay squeaky clean too, because you're like, look, like decency does go both ways.
Right.
You can't. It's Russia invading doesn't give you the right to go be a war criminal.
Yeah.
So it sort of encourages good behavior on both sides, but it allows the aggressor. It allows a tool to be deployed against the aggressor that is, before now, it's never really been available, right? It's really hard to threaten a foreign soldier's family. When he lands in your home, in your backyard, you're like, fuck, I don't know who this guy is. It's a big secret who he is because the military protects him. I know he came from this country. I don't even know anyone in that country. It solves that problem. And it's like, if you're going to be a soldier, man, you better be ready for the repercussions because you're going to be ID'd. Yeah. And you're going to be like, you're going to be immutably, permanently, publicly named as an invader of someone's home.
Especially particularly agree.
Now, do you believe in your cause?
I mean, I'd totally pay to find out who the fuck was driving that BMP that ran over the old bloke's car on day 2. Did you see the video of that? That was just horrific.
And you're like, that's not okay.
Yeah.
Let's find that guy. And fuck, a lot of us are like, look, I can't save the world, but I tell you what, I'm gonna set one score straight.
Yeah.
Right. And you pick something.
And with every system, of course, it's inherent on the users actually to stay within the law. And so even if you identified that guy, I would not go around and, beat him up because that would be assault. I would not do that. However, certainly be happy to, do the open source analysis of it. If we did find him, give his name to the appropriate authority and say, here's
absolutely, right? And so there's a lot of armchair detectives piecing together information, finding where this guy lives and all that.
Yeah.
And then all it takes is a couple of guys with some anonymous cash and someone else with a bit of a mean streak and wants to earn some cash, and then a hit's gone down and everyone's going to pay attention. There'll be a news story, the investigative work will be published, and everyone will be like, turns out there's a bit of a price to pay for being a dick.
Yeah. So I think we're agreed, we've converged on that, the intelligence, the decentralized intelligence layer. Going back to the top of the call, the incentives. So we've got the NFTs, but the thing with the NFTs is, where does the money go? Because you're not incentivizing an individual. I mean, you could say, I'm going to put it to this particular charity, which is helping in situ and so on. But
why aren't you incentivizing an individual? You're incentivizing whoever contributed to the task that you wanted done.
Well, how do you get something that person values to him in a war zone? I mean,
who doesn't value US dollars in a war zone?
Yeah, I suppose.
And particularly if the system is being used for civilian services like food, water, generators, Starlink dishes, internet access, you can just trade that. You can earn that currency and then go trade it for stuff.
So the incentive is actually down to the individual layer. So we've got this high level layer. You can get incentivized for putting stuff up, or you could just this is down to the license that you put on, I guess, isn't it?
There's 2 incentives. There's the incentive of reward that has nothing to do with the task at hand. That's, for example, money. And then there's reward of completion or participation in task, contribution to the task at hand. And that is what we go from making it be an event or something ephemeral that's likely forgotten. We capture that and mint that in an NFT so that nobody ever forgets that that's what you contributed. Now, when it comes time to attribution, that's where it probably gets fun. If you conquer the Russians, it would seem to me that the people of Ukraine owe a debt to those who fought.
Yes.
Right?
Of course. Yeah.
That's where attribution comes in, and that's why recording the contributions that happened in terms of financing, planning, ideas, execution, publication, broadcasting, all that. All of that's being tracked by NFTs, and so when that nation pays its debt to its defenders, you would expect something come to them, even if it's not money, even if it's just kudos by being able to walk into a pub, flash your wallet and be like, look, man, I am the highest ranking NFT holder in this room. Would someone kindly buy me a beer? Right? It's that sort of thing, as well as actual payments coming down. Because if you, let's imagine this gets really out of hand, right? Turns out Ukraine not only bounces Russia, but then goes, fuck these cunts, let's go take them over. Right? Takes back the Crimea and starts annexing Russian assets from around the world. You probably want to pay that out in some way that's fair. And that nation should pay. If you were to consider genuine reward, you'd want to pay out based on that attribution tree because it's the best thing you got.
But you're right. And the initial set of actions, you're just capturing contribution anyway. And the attribution, may come, may never come, may be substantial,
may never come.
Be repetition.
It may be considered. It may be minted virtually. Like, take, for example, if your grandmother suddenly says, look, thank you guys for winning the war. I have no money. My house was bombed. But I have minted this token that is my thanks. And I would like to pay it out to everyone who it's due. That token would be dispersed. I personally would value that. I would chalk that up against that I did something right in the world. I may have got a small share of this old lady's thanks for keeping her alive, keeping her safe, all that, right? That's a currency. It's something of value. I received a micro share of that because of my contribution overall.
I think,
and keep in mind the fact that that is a great morale booster across the country too, because people can start minting those tokens right now to anyone. And it's a big, big boost to receive something like that.
And also it's the lasting effect, which you mentioned, I think is important as well. So my grandfather, a Polish grandfather, was arrested 3 times in total by the Nazis, beaten up very badly, kept on escaping, managed to make his way to Scotland, married McGran, and then joined up the Polish army to fight back on the continent. So it's like, he is a dude, right? But nobody knows about him. He's a fucking dude. He is awesome.
Right, but see, so that should have all been captured in blockchain land, right? And you should have been able to tell that story as a kid going to school, right? Because you may not have been rich, but if you came from a family who contributed an enormous amount to winning the freedom of the country, you fucking earned some respect. And that respect ain't given. I mean, look at how veterans get treated in the US. Look at that guy that stopped us outside the Hilton, and you sort of don't know what he did for the country or not because the records of it are secret, right? Now what? How does that help him, right? He's just chewed up, spat out, begging for money on the street, right? It could be him that we actually owe for the fact that we can fucking stroll around the place feeling like we're superior.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That sort of system is what we want to put in here. It is a reality model. It's not just actual reality as of concern to tacticians, but it's reality of thingifying events and recognizing contributions no matter how small.
Yeah.
Right? That's an important morale boost when the suppressor comes in and makes you think you're alone, makes you think you should give up because they've won. But then you're like, actually, we've got this whole army here that tells me otherwise. I'm going to keep going.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
And one day, we're going to make you fucking pay. One day, I'm going to find that motherfucker that ran over my granddad's car in a tank. One day. Right? It's a scary... I don't think the world is ready for a war fought in pure, immutable memory, in high fidelity, 4K, immutable record keeping.
Yeah.
That's not a battle that's happened before.
No, it's not. And it just turns everything over, doesn't it?
It makes it a different game, man. It makes it a really different game.
How much more time you got?
I have to leave it on the hour.
Right. So we've got 11 minutes. Talk to me
Yeah.
about the transition from this open layer of decentralized intelligence to an individual private cell. How does that work?
Each each operator on their device has their own signing keys and their own chain, and only people that they give access to see that can see it.
Mm.
In the same vein, I can create networks of chains that can only be seen by people that I've granted access to. I can be a member of many different groups like this, and all of those groups can reference the base public layer without the public layer even knowing that it's being referenced.
Mm.
They can also reference each other, sometimes without those private layers knowing that they're being referenced by another private layer. Sometimes it's cooperative.
Mm.
It's basically anything I want, right? And setting up like automatic, like dead man switch type of publications, like if no one's heard from me in 2 days,
Dump
go
it all.
public.
Yeah.
You know, like, and then it also sort of diffuses a lot of this, like being tortured. You know, you're like, you set up the whole system so that when you get tortured, it's like, well, everything that was private just got made public by me. I don't actually, you probably know more than me now because I am out of date. But I can repeat what you already know now if that helps you feel better. And then suddenly it sort of makes torture seem a lot worse because there was no information to get. It's like, look, this is how we operate. Okay, first of all, as much that we can make public is public. And then as soon as someone gets captured, it all goes public via dead man switch anyway. So you only got to hold on for like 2 hours. And then if that even matters, right? But probably you and your mates have got an agreement that you're like, okay, if someone gets captured, you got 2 hours to fucking get yourself out of there. Or, it's all going public. So these overlay networks are just like, they're not really layers in so much as they're different surfaces going through the same volume.
Yes.
They can intersect with others, They
Yes.
all share the same base, where base is everything. Then on top of base is like public vetted. So you follow some whitelisting services that are like, no, this is our view of reality. And you're like, probably is. It's cheaper to just follow you. And then there's like the secret layers that you have that are like, your cohort or your sort of your plans. But a lot of you should try to use those private layers as little as possible, because what you should do is see, public doesn't mean it doesn't preclude anonymous. So if you've got an idea for a plan, you should just submit it as an anonymous person. And it's like, it's an idea. Like, does it hurt that the enemy knows about it? Maybe, maybe not. There's so many ideas. The enemy actually would have a problem processing it all. And then who's going to actually execute it? Well, you don't even know that. So how could the enemy possibly know that? And yet one day someone is like, target of opportunity, go. The system is kind of trying to make it so that the only type of targets are target of opportunity, because they're just so easy and cheap, relatively speaking. They're practically free.
And you really can't do
compared
anything
to
about you really can't do anything about it.
No, and you can't predict them. It's like it's all kinds of hard, and it can let militia be a lot more relaxed. It's like, go home to your families, do your work, stay low, follow the statistical guidance from the automated normalcy calculator that says you should follow these movements to look like a normal person so you don't stand out in the crowd. And then one day you're like, opportunity has spoken. And from like, you could decide within minutes that you're like, yep, I'm that guy today. I'm that guy. The automated system has generated the need for an agent that fits these characteristics that right now has a wide open shot at goal. Wide open. I fit that agent's characteristics. I trust the computation that generated that recommendation. Fuck it. And within under a minute, you go from normal guy to hardcore mission person, and hopefully you come back out into normal guy again, right? It's very, very expensive to fight a force like that.
There's no military doctrine I've ever read that's effective against asymmetric, dispersing, well-motivated group. Well, it would take an inordinate amount of treasure to do it. Number of troops,
and that's what the game is. The game is breaking the bank.
Yeah.
The game is breaking the bank. You want to break Russia's bank.
Yeah. Okay. Right. I've got enough now. What am I going to do today? I'm still going to work inside the GDoc for now, and then transfer it over to the request. The GDoc, I'll add in these areas that we went through, especially detailing out the that top layer, which I think by itself, if there was no other overlays, that would be groundbreaking in its own right.
Well, here you go, Mr. Maxwell. You wanted to write a thesis? Here's your thesis.
Yes.
Decentralized intelligence agency.
Yeah, it's beautiful, and it's really difficult to figure out what you do against it.
And given that like cyber warfare is such a big deal now, this thing is cyber warfare native. Yeah. It's like cyber warfare first. And I tell you, man, we could make a killing selling the game that is the exact same interface that every operator or planner would be presented with. And you're like, dude, this is the game. And you can run as many sims as you like. And you can contribute to a global database of smooth moves to play. You can build bots against it. Basically, there's nothing's going to stop you running any code you like against this system. The only goal is win.
Yeah.
Is win. And then real, new missions come in because they're actual real things that are happening right now. And you need to figure out how you're going to play the pieces you're given. But what's more scary is you can stump up some cash with your friends and you can make new resources appear in the scenarios.
I think one of the big first use cases would be journalists, sources, because the overlays, the private networks, are actually disinterested about what you organize in there, but it's just a method for branching to the public collection, and then organizing around that in a way that you could publish back. And so could be militia, sure.
Yeah,
could be journalists.
Sure. You can start, incentivizing information, types of information, regular information, incentivizing a CCTV camera being put up. It's just the list goes on.
Yeah.
Okay, so
okay.
I mean that when I read this, I'm like, this sounds to me like someone. It sounds sort of like fucking Achtung Panzer, but like fucking something, but like the internet version of it.
That's not a bad analogy, actually. The thing with Achtung Panzer,
it's pretty much that, right?
It turned upside. The reason Achtung Panzer was so influential, it overturned the standing doctrine. And you see the difference between this publication,
and this is it here, and you can start to see. First of all, I can see the bias in your thinking, but second of all, you can see how fucking different it is, and you're like, man, I'm not sure that a central agency can fight that. Like, I'm actually not sure that there's enough power.
I don't think
to be able to deal with such a high fidelity enemy.
I'm pretty sure they can't. Certainly from my experience, they get over bandwidth. The bandwidth is the problem, isn't it? They get over bandwidth by pre-vetting.
I know.
And it's like,
and then you've got like it's like you kind of make this nation weapon out of the whole thing. Like everyone who believes that they're right and part of that group become this highly coordinated force that has no center, that will just fucking annihilate anything that comes near them.
Yeah.
And so you're not really building walls. You're just saying, if you come here, you won't survive. Like, you're welcome to come. We'll all put down our arms and be like, welcome to Ukraine. Okay, but...
All right. Right. I'll let you off because that's top of the hour. And today I'll be working on the GDoc. I'll let you know when I'm hands off. If you're around tomorrow,
yeah, that'd be good. That'd be good. Yeah. I'm not sure if I have the time, but that would be good. Yeah. I'll see if I can make it. I'm going to keep going with the building the thing.
Yes, the actual stuff.
I don't know if you got a chance to look at the YouTube video that I broadcast with my last call with Rex, but he was pretty complimentary of the design and said that, we don't have any outstanding problems that we've been punting problems down the road since 2016. Right? This design we have now, to me, I have no unanswered questions. I'm like, what about blah, blah, blah? Like, no more of those. And he doesn't think of any either. He may think of some that he forgot about over time. There's a long list. But, this looks like the one. So I'm going to keep working on it. It's even smaller than the ones before.
Fantastic. Brilliant.
It's funny. That's why I was like, anyway,
yeah. I've got the a deep interest in getting this out. So yeah, I'm going to be a bit obsessive about it. Yeah. If you can drop in tomorrow, great, brilliant. Otherwise, the GDoc
sounds good, man. I love this topic.
Yeah,
this is my favorite topic. Okay, I'll see you later.
See you, man.